So it keeps on growing. It's been perpetually growing. So you find actually somebody maybe has a tax liability of 1 billion, but you actually now find the actual tax that he is supposed to pay is 200 million. And so today we said, let's start up from a clean sheet. Let's go backwards and begin to see what have we been paying. Avomara has been paying his taxes, and you have been putting that thing on penalty and interest. Please reverse it, apply it on the principle, so that we begin to see what is actually my tax, real tax responsibility. So some of the laws that we have been doing has really affected our industry, our private sector from growing. And I think the bill that we passed today will go a long way in helping the business people to deal with their tax code. We go backwards, we look at what you have been paying, and the key thing is that the accountants out there and we're running companies, they need to go to your tax manager. Effective 1st July, I think. You go to your tax manager and begin to look backwards and see, I have been paying my taxes, why have you applied this thing on interest and penalty instead of on the principal tax? And then we begin to get those penalties and waivers to be taken away, so that the monkey in the room, we see now exactly what is my tax liability, apart from all these things that, and one of the people told us that one time URA did run, you know, how do I call it, a program on those tax arrears. Do you know how much it came to, Ramadan? 36 trillion. 36 trillion. I say, you can't collect 36 trillion. Because what is actually inside there is the penalties and interest that you have been putting on these business people. And so if we want our economy to grow, I think, Ramadan, we need to look at a tax code, and I'm happy that the proposals have come, we have redefined it, and starting effectively July, people should be able to deal with the backlog of those interest penalties and whatever, so that our business people can pay their taxes and this economy will begin to grow.
And Honorable, I think I'll come back to you on especially the teen and the neen that was in the proposal for you. But let me come to Professor here. Professor, PSST gives us good numbers up there. Andrew speaks of that number in the middle there of young people that we spoke about even last week when we were talking about unemployment. Where is the missing link to link this economy to its majority of its population, and what backward and forward linkages do we need, especially to cover that gap? Because PSST will tell us it's 14.2% that pays tax. How do we stop the deepening and get to the widening?
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Timothy. I think everyone has made very wonderful points. And the PSST did a good job constructing the macro picture. And I think Andrew tried to unpack that. And I think what Honorable Mara has tried is to find out some of the facts within that unpacking. But the key issue is to look at what is our population structure. What is our, first of all, we have a very dependent population. What is our private sector looking like? Because we also read that one of the key sectors to grow an economy, it cannot just be government. It has to be the strength of the private sector. But when you look at the strength of the private sector in Uganda, it's 90% MSMEs, okay? The macro, small and medium term enterprises. And when you look within that, actually the majority are also micro, okay? Then 7% small, and I mean, micro, then small, then it's only 2% which is medium enterprises. So the whole private sector, other than the government sector, is largely in that area which is very precarious, which is very vulnerable. They would love to really relate with those figures, and it's good. PSST said we are eating GDP every day, so we shall realize that we were not eating GDP when the costs go up, and actually you've done very well to stabilize inflation. But for the people on the ground, they are operating very small. And each time we get guests coming from other African countries, like Nigeria, like Kenya, like Ghana, they are always mesmerized at why are we that small. So even within our own league of countries, they see that we are small. And I think a lot goes to a bit to taxation, as Honorable Mara has said. And I've ever spent a little bit of time in the UK. When you have a big tax liability, they invite you and you negotiate how you're going to pay. Here, you will arrive and close you down. So until you pay. So that puts a number of people out of business. So we are struggling, but also what is the challenge that comes with us being so small? A lot of the challenges, of course, the fact that we have limited access to finance, we have limited access to support services. People have talked here about electricity and everything, but there's also a major challenge of registration. The registration, actually I was looking at the statistics of the state of the entrepreneurship in this country, which was released last year. No region has 50% registration. You have Kampala 45%, I think, and the north 47%. Those are like the high ones. The lowest is Eastern with 29%, even Central 37%. And what are the challenges which come with not being registered? Of course, there's reduced tax revenue that we are talking about because everything remains informal. And if you can't track the informal, you just only track the formal, and then we have these dismal figures. But there's a lot happening in the informal. And maybe that's why PSST said probably sometimes it's better you track expenditure than track revenue. Income. If you are doing especially household surveys. Then, of course, another consequence which comes with the limited registration, Timothy, goes to limited access to finance because you're not registered. Your existence is not known. So then that compounds the limited access to finance, which is a cause to why these these enterprises not lasting very long and remaining small. And of course, the other thing is inefficiency, because if you're not registered, you're not doing good record keeping, you're not seeing where the waste is, you're not seeing where the losses are, and where you need the basic support. So this becomes a very big challenge. So I think one of the things for us to connect the macro and the micro is one of the big bridges would be registration. And what are some of the causes of this lack of registration that, if addressed, can be supported? Limited awareness of the procedures. So people don't know if you want to register, where do you register from, and how do you begin the registration process. And of course, a lot of things have been automated. That alone produces its own challenges. The other thing, of course, has to be most of the country remains remote and rural. Of course, the cost of extending services to those, apart from mobile money, is very high. So you cannot really put there. And of course, there's this challenge: do we register at districts? Do we register at national? And how do you connect between the district level support services and the national level support services? Then there are the issues of registration-related costs. He has talked about if you register, and actually when you talk to many people, why their businesses are not registered, is the day you register, you will arrive. And they will not care whether you're making a loss or you're making a profit. They will want you to pay taxes. The assumption is that you made money and you're simply engaging in tax evasion. So what do most people do? They go into tax avoidance, remain below the bar, or remain undercover so that you're not picked on the radar,